The intended use of this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests independently, and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of UPDOG Challenge Incorporated, its sponsors, or any other partnered organizations. UPDOG Challenge Incorporated does not guarantee the accuracy or reliability of any opinions expressed. In no way should the information provided during the Sweet Spot and UPDOG podcast be considered veterinary, medical, legal, or professional advice. At all times, the advice of your personal professional should supersede any information provided, derived, or inferred from listening to this podcast.
Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot, an UPDOG podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I am Jack Faley, and we have two great guests with us today. Dre, who are our guests?
We have Dr. Tim and Megan from Dr. Tim's. Give it up for Dr. Tim's. Dr. Tim's was our unobtainium food sponsor for UPDIF 2026. And not only did they sponsor, but they flew out to the event, set up a tent, did giveaways throughout the week, and answered a bunch of people's questions, and came to our banquet. So they were very present during the whole week, and they got to connect with a lot of our community, and our community got to connect with them quite a bit. So we thought it would be beneficial all the way around if we invited them on the podcast and gave them an opportunity outside of like a really busy competitive environment where everybody's coming and going from one place to the other to talk a little bit about what makes Dr. Tim different and their nutrient, kind of the focus of the food.
I know
Is that a good summary?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to add in that I know that talking with folks at UPDIF, they were just super impressed that you guys actually came out. You know, we have a lot of sponsors, but very few of them send somebody and come out and talk with our competitors. And I just think, especially Dr. Tim, you coming out personally, just made a huge difference. And there were a lot of people impressed with that. And they're like, I can't believe like he came out and he was talking to us. So that I think made an impact with everybody.
We really had fun. It was quite enjoyable. We didn't know what to expect. And by being there front and center, seeing everything was great. It was really, really fun. I can't say enough about the compassion and humanity and all that good stuff you guys have towards your animals. It's just spot on, man. It's what I've always strove for.
Well, and I was going to add too, like it
we're
was
happy to hear
kind of, I have an acrobat here. Kind of amazing, just all the competitors
dogs and
that
cats are welcome.
came up and said thank you to us for being here. You know, when we were tearing down our tent, everyone was willing to give a hand, and yeah, just like Dr. Tim said, the community around it was something like I've never seen. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hats off. You've done well.
We're happy.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that just, you know, it's a rough week, it's a hard week, it's a lot of work, but like just like you said, that community and seeing them all having fun and pitching in, just it makes it worth it. It definitely gets you up in the morning each morning when I'm like, you know, trying to get to the field and get things ready and stuff like that. So all right.
Get
Dre,
you
you
up
ready
at
to go
5:30
here? We got we got some
One last
questions
thing I want to
for
say real quick,
Megan and
Jack.
Dr.
Real
Tim.
quick, Jack. Jack, one quick thing. This is the first dog event I've been to, and I never stepped in poop at. So thanks.
Hey, that says
Nice.
something right there about our competitors,
That's a win.
right? Yep. They're
Everybody
pretty
picked
good.
up their poop.
Yeah,
That's
they're
awesome.
pretty good about that.
All right, so we're gonna jump right in, and the most obvious question for me is tell us about your background a little bit. Like, how did you get started making pet food?
Sure. I graduated from college, vet college in '89, and by '93, I started my own practice with another person. And in doing so, we started from scratch. And when we started here up in Marquette, Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, we had no clients, and there were a few sled dog kennels around, which had like 80 dogs, and I thought they would be good clients to have. Little did I know that, number one, they wouldn't have any money. Two, that I would fall in love with working with sled dogs and being around them. And three, suddenly being into that arena led to me getting dogs. I got my first four, then 8, 16, whatever. We started to race, and we raced for a number of years before I thought about the whole food concept of going further into it than we were at that point. That point, we had a montage of things in the garage, cement mixer to mix it up, all this bullshit that we were putting into the food to make it better, because there wasn't any dry food that could really work. And a dry food alone won't do the trick for a sled dog. You need a lot of meat and other things in there, plus a base dry food. Anyway, one day my wife walked into the garage and said, "What are you doing? Why don't you just put this all together in a kibble?" And it struck me, like a sledgehammer. And that's where we started. Our first food came out in 2004, based on some different things that we were feeding and that we saw fed out there. It wasn't inventing it. It was just putting it into a complete package. And then from there, we had to get it into the hands of people that were running dogs besides myself, and then refine it from there. There were hurdles along the way. We've done, I think, at least 7 different plants in the United States, a couple in Canada, 3 or 4 in Europe, just trying to find the right place to make the food consistently and then refine it according to that. We started off with, the high-end Uber athlete sled dogs, and we were lucky to be able to pair with some kennels up in Alaska where they won the Iditarod 5 out of 10 years, and it proved the food worked. So what we did there was take the idea of how the food was built and build it down into different lifestyles. And what I mean by that is, you've got a dog that's going to run 120 miles a day versus a Frisbee dog or a couch potato dog or, whatever it might be, a dock dog. And the way you would formulate a food is going to be somewhat different according to the fat, protein, fiber composition, digestibility, and all that kind of stuff, according to what they're going to do, because a too high octane dog that's not requiring it is easy. It would work, but people don't have the patience to feed small amounts, and they feel like they're not doing justice to the animals. So we have to take it down a few notches so we don't have million octane. We take it down to 94 octane, and then let them feed it appropriately so they can have success and feed enough where they feel like they're not starving the dog. And it really does show its worth in the end. Again, an active dog needs a food that's a round hole for a round peg kind of deal, or vice versa, I should say, versus a square peg into a round hole. There's a lot of good diets on the market, not saying anything against that, but sometimes they're just not meant for the activity the dog is undertaking. And if you have to make many different compromises to make the food work, then maybe there's an easier way.
So I
Yeah.
noticed.
And the last, yeah,
That was
go
well
ahead.
said.
Mhm.
I was just gonna say I noticed that the food that you that are winners of the different divisions and stuff they got was it Pursuit? Is that right?
Correct. The Pursuit Active.
So
Mhm.
what would that one kind of be?
That's a
Categorized under.
Yeah, go ahead,
Sure, that
Dr.
would
Sam.
be under
Sorry, I didn't want
active.
to
We've got
interrupt
one of
you.
those slidey scales on the back that kind of, oh, that's okay. No, it'd be for an active dog that's busy, meaning that they're jogging with the owners, 5 miles a day. They're catching frisbees, they're hunting, for that matter. And then we can scale it up from there depending on how they respond to it. And then what we're looking for as to weight they are striving to keep weight on because they're so active versus they're overweight, which is a whole nother category we can talk on later.
Yeah, so you had mentioned categorized by lifestyle. And so the food that you brought, Pursuit, is well geared towards Frisbee dogs, right? The dogs that were there. So
Mhm.
you do have other foods that are targeted towards puppies or senior dogs. So can you tell us, and I've used a bunch of varieties of the food, so I've used a lot of them. But can you tell us, if you had a sport puppy maybe that was coming
Mhm.
in, let's say, let's give you an extra challenge, a large breed sport puppy, because they're going to have
Mhm.
different needs than like a border collie because their growing is
Sure.
different, right? So, how would you, if you were a person that was considering switching to Dr. Tim's, and because they met you at UpDiff, and they do have dogs, but they have a variety of needs in their dogs. They have two or three performing dogs that play regularly, but maybe they have a German Shepherd puppy or a Malinois puppy that is also
Mhm.
coming up that they would want to feed separately, and then maybe they have a retired border collie or a retired Aussie that had a very active lifestyle and still goes on adventures, but doesn't have the output that it used to have when it was younger. Kind of what are the
This is
different
sounding
food
very
varieties?
specific, Ray.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, we
But
have different ranges. Like you would feed a large breed puppy differently than you would feed a small breed puppy, and I don't know that
Yeah.
people know that.
yeah, do you know the difference of what you would feed a large breed puppy versus a
No, that's
small
your
breed puppy?
department. This is your
Yeah, I'm just
department.
wondering if you were
You
familiar with it.
know.
It's all about the calcium phosphorus ratio. Okay. So if you have a calcium phosphorus ratio of roughly 1.3 to 1, 1.4 to 1 is the top end, that's going to be sufficient for a growing large breed puppy. If you have a poodle, a 1.4 to 1 ratio would be okay. A 2 to 1 ratio would be okay. A 2.5 to 1 ratio would be okay. But that wouldn't be okay for a large breed. So if you make them all 1.3 to 1, for instance, it's an all life stages diet. It's just the calcium. And honestly, Dre, it's all a gimmick to sell a lot of puppy food to lock you into a certain brand and then stay with it. So you can make a food meant for a Great Dane and a poodle in the same bag by changing the calcium phosphorus ratio to one that's appropriate for both, which is a little bit lower than what you would expect to see in a mainstream diet. So it's not hard. You would want to keep the diet so the energy density is moderate, so it's not too much and you get the dog too heavy. But it doesn't mean you can't feed, let's say Momentum, which is a 35-25 food to a Malinois. You would have to just feed a small amount. And that's where you run into problems or people don't follow instructions great in the US versus, let's say, Europe, where they measure. Here we just use like they actually weigh a lot of times the food. Here we use scoops. The scoops don't always denote a cup. Okay. So because of that, we tend to be a little more cautious in the States than we are in other countries because of, when's the last time you read any instructions, Jack?
Just in general or about dog
Yeah,
food?
anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't need those, Dr. Tim. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, there you go. So, so that's the thing. So when you have a different, line of dogs, say little to big, you can make a food work across the board that way. Then you get into the more active things, which can change stuff. But you can have a 15-year-old dog still on a very active dog food, 35-25. We've done that for years with the sled dogs, and they do great. You just feed less. And that's where the Italian mother gets in the way of you because you want to feed more because you love the dog and they give you that, unbridled caring back and you feel guilty when you don't give it to them. And pretty soon you feed this high caloric food to them, which actually is the best way to feed the dog. But then you overfeed and you get soft stools or diarrhea. Then you think the food is crap. So in a nutshell, that's it, Dre. I hope that helped a little bit.
So, so what I got from what you said is if it says all life stages, we can feed puppies to our older dogs, which I did for years. I was on just Momentum with my entire pack. I had up to 17 dogs, I think was the most that I ever had, and everybody was on Momentum. And then at some point, I switched my older dogs to Kinesis Senior because it was
Mhm.
easier to manage their weight.
Mhm.
Um, when I was on the road or whatever. But everybody did great on Momentum.
Yeah.
I guess how would we know? So basically, if you have a variety in ages and you just want to feed one type of food, just make sure you go for the all life stages. The other thing that I've noticed here in the US for dog food is you you can't really feed what it suggests on the package. Your dog's definitely going to get fat. I'm just saying that about other varieties. I don't even look at how much to feed on the bag because
Mhm.
they want to sell more dog food. So my experience is if I'm reading what's on the bag, it's usually about double what I'm feeding my food, what I'm feeding my dogs, what it recommends to feed. And so I
Yeah,
haven't
I
used
would
it as a
agree.
reliable gauge of how much to feed them.
Hmm. Yeah, the convention of the sliding scale of how to make dog food labels and how much to feed your animal is pretty generous, in my opinion. Especially in the United States, the majority of dogs get spayed and neutered, which then automatically drops your metabolic needs by 20%. Okay. So again, feed in Europe, the majority of dogs are not spayed and neutered
Right.
in Europe versus the States. And then you have that 20% change. So people often will kind of miss that one. Plus, we're all working, the dogs aren't as active. If you go to Europe, they work like half a day. They take the whole month of August off. The dogs are out
Mhm.
doing stuff a lot more than us. Hate to say it. But I'm not saying that we're not active, but certain lifestyles, human, are more conducive to less feeding for your dog, if that makes sense. What I always used to do when I talked at sled dog symposiums was to always remind the mushers, that's what you call the person that drives a sled, to touch their dogs. You need to feel the dogs to know where you're at. Meaning, if they're big and fluffy like a border collie, can be at times you need to touch the ribs and actually feel what you got under there versus guess. A lot of times dogs get wet and they look like a drowned rat or they look like a big floating capybara. So we got to figure out where in between we can try to find that happy medium. So touch your dogs, feel their ribs. You want to be able to feel the ribs with some cushion, for instance. Younger dogs, I had a lot of questions of this at the DiscDog competition. Is my dog is a year and a half? I think he's really skinny. Do you think he is? And I said, no. Check their thighs. Their thighs are big and muscular, but they don't have weight over their chest yet. It's just like a middle school or high school kid. It takes a little while for everything to develop. By the time they're 2 or 3 in some breeds, they'll be thick and looking all, Arnold-like.
Yeah. And Jack, I promise I'll let you jump in. I just have one, one more thing I
Go
wanted to
for
say.
it, Dre. Go for it.
Um, and this is just anecdotal from my own experience, so I wanted to check it with you to see what you thought. Typically, when I'm like, if I notice my dog's a little skinny or a little heavy, I'll change whatever the portion is, and then I give it 3 weeks to evaluate. So that's just the way that I do, because I don't really see or notice weight changes like in a
Mhm.
week. So I usually give
No.
myself like a 3 week assessment on that amount of food and then reassess whether they need more or less. Would that be a good time window or a good way of kind of managing that? Because I just made that
Yeah,
up.
you're spot on, man. You don't have to be a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist to do this stuff. You got to see what's going in and what's coming out. It really is all about the poop. So if the poops are solid with whatever you're doing with the dog, then the food's appropriate, with the exception of feeding too close to your event. Okay. You can overfeed, you can feed too close to exercise. They don't have time to digest it. Things move through the digestive tract of a dog due to different stimuli. One can be the fat amount, two can be the activity, three could be how warm it is of the food and so on and so forth. Different things can speed it along. So if you want consistency, I expect to have a dog gain no more than about a pound a week if I do a food portion change, like what you're saying. And then I want to see if the stools are consistent. If I'm getting soft stools, then it's either going to be because they're intolerant of it, meaning I can't drink milk anymore. Dogs can't eat certain ingredients without repercussions, or you're feeding too much so they don't have enough time to digest it because it
Mhm.
speeds through too quick. So you taper it to the amount that leads to maybe you're increasing it like Dre said, but the stools stay solid, which means it's digesting. So if you don't have solid stools, the food isn't working because something is reaching the colon that's not digested, that's pulling water and leads to soft stool. And the colon's job is to pull water from everything to make it into a beautiful poop that you can hit with a golf car or golf club. And then if you don't have that, then something's wrong. You got to figure out what it is that's adjusting here, that needs adjusting.
All right, you good, Dre?
Yeah, I have more, but you get to go next.
So,
This would be a
so
5 hour show.
Dr. Tim, you mentioned, I think I just heard you say something about like warm food or cold food, or
Mhm.
I've heard about that in the last year, and I'm not sure I completely understand what that all means. But Kat and I do have a dog right now that runs like very hot, like that gets overheated very quickly. Is there such a thing as like that I should be feeding something specific, or the protein might be needing to be something specific for a dog like that?
So what do you mean by running hot? Can you tell me what that means to you?
So, if I take him outside, even if it's not, obviously it's Florida, it's hot everywhere, but I mean, even if it's in the morning or in the evening when it's not that hot yet, he just gets overheated very quickly and will just seek shade and just lay down. Like he also like he's also very s super amped up to play, so he like runs really hot too. Like, he'll be like
Mhm.
yeah, like, for like a minute or two, and then it'll be like, okay, I'm done here. But anyways, I didn't know if maybe certain foods might help him with his ability to cool better. I'm not sure.
No, you raise a really good question about how to handle that in certain climates that maybe the dog isn't meant for, or you have this dog that's really wound tight and overheats. I've seen a dog overheat at zero. Okay, they get really excited at starting line. They're very animated. Something delays the team taking off, and all of a sudden the dog drops over because he's overheated, which is serious business, and things can happen from there. Getting to your dog, then there's a rule, let's say in the sled dog world of 120 where we look at a combination of humidity and temperature not exceeding 120, and if it's over that, then we don't run them. So that to me is a fairly generous number. So if you have 40 degrees and 80% humidity, it equals 120, we're okay. That means it's snowing or raining. So if you put that together, you can kind of use that. In Florida, I think you're always going to be close to 200 because it's always humid and be
Yep.
hot down there. So how to do that, shaving your dog, I don't think is going to make a giant difference with a dog that's that amped. I mean, that's one thing to do is reduce the hair coat, take the fur coat off the dog. Two is to soak the dog beforehand, of course. Three, there are different types of fat that potentiate heating, meaning chicken fat versus pork fat versus beef fat, okay, have different attributes as to how the body responds to it. But the key with that is going to be proper distance before your event with feeding, so it's not a factor. Okay. So if you're feeding at least 4 hours prior to when they're doing something, that's optimal, if not the night before with a dog like yours. I'm not opposed to, I saw the pools all over the place there at the event with ice in it, which I thought was terrific. So dogs can cool down quickly. I never saw a dog overheat despite it being hot and sunny and everything. I never saw one happen, which was really great. So hopefully everybody can understand and identify what a dog looks like when they overheat. We won't go too far off subject here. But getting back to your question, I think it's the timing of feeding that has a big influence for it. And what I meant by warm versus cold feeding would be the temperature of the water you add to it, okay, can have an influence. And I don't think you're feeding warm water with food much, where I come from a environment of right now, like I showed you, we got ice out where we might use warm water to thaw the meat. Okay. How much factor that has, usually the dogs are going to sit for 4 hours after you feed them, so it should not have a factor. If you hit them with that warm water on food and then run them, it's going to go right through them. Okay. So colder water tends to be slower transit than warmer water as a rule. Okay. How the body reacts to it. Just think about it yourself, when you eat different things, how your belly feels.
Okay, thank you,
Sure.
Dre.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So, you're saying we want at least 4 hours after feeding to maximize the benefits of the food for caloric exertion.
To maximize the digestibility of the food so then they can run without that being a factor in their performance.
Okay.
No one likes to run. I see if you eat
With a
lasagna, you're
full
not going to go
belly.
for
Yeah.
basketball right away. It's not the best way. You know where it's going to go. And the same with dogs. So a digestion window, 4 hours tends to be the spot people try to do. I think the most important thing, especially when you start to talk about GDVs and stomach flippings and everything like that with certain breeds, keep your feedings consistent. Dogs flip their stomach much more with inconsistent feeding than consistent feeding. What I mean by that is with timing. If you're always feeding the same time, before and after exercise, okay, they get used to it. If suddenly you do it outside the window, it seems to open the door for some of these events to occur. And I can't always, many can't explain why stomachs always flip, but one can be the feeding in relation to exercise. So it needs to be a little bit away from your exercise, but keep it consistent versus randomly, one day it's 2 hours, one day 30 minutes and whatever. I find that has a bearing.
All right, so just to take that one step further, if we did want to maximize the caloric intake from the previous meal for exertion for the next day, what's the optimal
Mhm.
time window to be able to use those resources for the dog?
Yeah, yeah, we're going to get into glycogen replenishment now, which is the most important thing with animals like you guys have, which are fast twitch muscle dogs that are doing speedy things for short time frames. Greyhounds, border collies, and stuff like that fall into this realm of this kind of activity. So, glycogen is what's used by muscles quickly. It's like the fast fuel that speeds things along and it gets used up usually in 3 to 6 minutes in most cases. It last longer in some animals and it can be produced by some animals in exercise. Getting back to it, when you want to replenish the glycogen stores, which get used as kind of your rocket boosters, if you think of the space shuttle or something going up, they drop those rocket boosters off. That's your glycogen. Okay. And then the main thrusters are the fat being used for propelling the spaceship, which can be your dog. So your rocket boosters, the way you fill those, okay, for the following day's journey to the moon is going to be giving them something that has the correct type of glucose within a 30-minute window of the cessation of exercise. Okay, that's when the glycogen doors start to close on the cells. And by doing so, meaning that we give them something carbohydrate based within 30 minutes, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a half a cup of rice. It could be dog biscuits. It could be things that contain maltodextrin that are specifically made for this. You can have a much better second day. And that's where people fail in hunting dogs and other things. They're not aware of this glycogen replenishment window and they miss the opportunity. Once that door closes, they still replenish glycogen, but it can take up to 3 days to fill that rocket booster again versus you can fill it all in 30 minutes. Okay. So once it closes, then it's a trickle in versus it's a pour in. It's just how the body's made. So we don't need a monster meal right away. Actually, it's counterintuitive to the glycogen replenishment to have a lot of fat involved with your replenishment window, meaning that
Right.
you want to have primarily carbs, okay, maybe some protein to make it palatable, but very little fat would be ideal because that interferes with the doors being staying open for proper replenishment. And then your boosters are ready for day two.
That's like
Is
having
that
your protein hit after a workout,
Yep,
replenishing the
same
protein
thing.
during that window. That's super cool. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, is that connected to the is it the Immune Shield chews?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, the ImmuShield chews are one option for that. The main benefit there is the glucans in there too, so that can be very beneficial for the replenishment and the immune system in one. There are other things you can do yourself versus buying, expensive things out there. For instance, and you're in a pinch, you just got to get carbs into the dog. Again, rice, the maltodextrin drinks you can buy and so on. But something glucosey, okay, in that first 30 minutes is kind of important to do. I wouldn't get wrapped up with it, but if you get your dog used to it, this goes for training too. So if you're training your dog Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, your event's Friday, and you forget to do this on Wednesday, by Friday, the dog's going to have some glycogen back, but halfway through the event, the dog will go flat. Okay, is what we'll see. And then Saturday, they're really in a trouble, okay, for being as sustained as they should be. It really is a fascinating process, the whole glycogen replenishment. There's been a lot of study in sled dogs on this that I won't get into today, or I'll be talking all day long.
Yeah, this certainly seems like something we can really dig into and like fine tune. Because I remember last year when we were at Skyhounds, Jack and Magic was playing a lot between the last chance qualifier. By Sunday, he was gassed. And it's not that he's not a fit dog or that he wasn't fed or that he wasn't, he wasn't overworked. It wasn't any different from dog shows. But the excitement of being at the event depleted extra, right? And I didn't know
Yep.
anything about glycogen restoration. So this will be a whole rabbit hole I can dive down to try and get
Yeah.
consistent performance on back to back to back to back days when we need the
Yeah.
dog to have higher exertion. Like at a dog show, you can manage it well enough, right? They do one show and they do one show the next day and you give them a day off. But when we're competing, we need maximum performance every day.
Hey,
You
Dre,
know,
this
we should
is
develop, Dre. Oh, sorry, Jack. Dre, we should develop a DiscDog goo. Remember the goo packs that you have for
I do
yourself?
remember the goo packs, yeah, and we can make
Yeah,
them
I
like
mean,
little carbohydrate
frisbees.
squirts.
Yep.
Perfect.
Shaped
Little
like a
okay.
frisbee.
New product,
Mhm.
frisbee shaped goo packs. We could just shoot in our dog's mouth within 30 minutes after playing.
Yep. And that's all you need. Honestly, that would work great. So
That's
Megan, take
amazing.
notes.
Yeah, take notes on that one. Jack, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, we haven't connected to freestyle yet, but this is a way we are, Dr. Tim, we always joke about how quick Dre and I can steer the conversation towards freestyle, which is our favorite disc game. But Dre, this is another way to find your points, right? Like,
Yep.
when just like you said, like if it's the second day of competition and you're going into it and your dog's a little flat, you're not going to get that dog score that you were hoping for, or they're not going to make it to get that catch that, you threw a little bit off or whatever.
Yep.
Like, so this is another way, like we're always thinking about what how can I increase my dismanagement, or how can I throw these throws better or whatever. But if we're also thinking about our dogs and how they can perform the best, we can pick up a few more points that way too.
Yep. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's super interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you look at these athletic dogs, dogs are meant to eat other animals, all right? Pure and simple. They are omnivores. They can handle plant material, but the ones that excel eat animal proteins. And that's what we've always based our foods on, are going super heavy animal protein based diets because those amino acids are essential and favored for muscle building and endurance and everything else versus using a ton of pea protein, okay, or corn gluten protein or something like that. Those things make a label number fine, but they don't perform as well on it. There's subtle differences there. And again, there's no magic bullet. Okay, one change of food isn't going to make suddenly your dog,
A world
Lance
champion.
Armstrong without erythropoietin. So getting back to the food, I mean, all of those things go into the importance of how a food is constructed. But again, getting back to like what you're saying, freestyle, if they're doing that so much and you're missing the window with something as simple as the glycogen replenishment, because you're just not aware of it, then you do it. It's like on the human side, I see all these water multipliers these days, okay, that you put in your drink. That's been around in the dog field for a while. Okay. I remember using something like that 15 years ago. We used to use propylene glycol for that. And that would help them hold water more. And the theory there, Jack, was just what you were talking about. Can we get a dog better hydrated so they withstand the heat better? Okay. And after you talked about it with your dog, that was one thing that came to mind that we used to try to do many years ago in the sprint dog field, which I'm sure they're still doing, but I'm not in the sprint dog field um, much at all anymore. But it was something that we looked at, and that was one of the inclusions for the immunoshields was based on that idea. So you're getting me thinking on all these lines here. This is fun. This is fun to be innovative.
Yeah. Yeah, so we should be taking the
Anyway,
Immu Shield if we're at an event, pop one of those in if we don't have a easy carbohydrate source or these really cool
yeah.
disc-shaped carb packets that you're going to design and send to me to pass out to people. Um,
Hmm.
we can give them an Immu Shield, and that will help restore the glycogen levels within 30 minutes, which will help them have the rocket boosters that we need for multiple days of performance back to back. What if they're playing what if it's a day when they're playing six updog games and they're 1 minute games and they're not really fully exerting their energy on any of
Every
them?
time. Yeah, do it after you're done each time. Yep.
Okay.
Every time I would do it to replenish those tanks because the tanks get used, they might be used 40%, but why not fill them back up to 100%, with a few simple things right afterwards? Because it is a cumulative thing on the speed by which this will refill. So if you do the math it doesn't take a long time to figure out that you're going to deplete that glycogen, even with 1 minute drills by the
Yeah.
end of the day. And then the next day, they're really flat.
We're gonna give Jack a minute for him to come back because they live out in the woods. So I
I
suspect
thought
this
they
is
lived in Florida.
they are, but they're in the woods in Florida.
There's
Like
woods in Florida?
in the wood. Oh, yes. Have you not? I grew up in Florida. So the coasts are all where the cities, we were waiting for you, Jack. The coasts are, Palm Beach and West Palm and Fort Lauderdale and Melbourne and
Mhm.
Miami. And then the west side, Tampa and all that. They live a little bit in the central Florida area and it's all woods.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Country in the
Neat.
middle of the state is country. So
It's
they're out in the
flat
country a bit.
flat woods though. Like it's not woods like,
There's no
in the
mountains.
mountain
You have a
woods.
quarry.
Yeah.
You have a quarry nearby. That counts because we dug a
Wow.
hole.
Yeah, that's topography.
Yeah.
So Jack,
All
let
right.
me ask you a question about your dog real quick, which is, I think, a very important one because so many people live in areas that aren't as cold as where I come from, but it does get warm in the summer here, where it gets 80, 90 and stuff. Do you look for the morning to be the time that you get out with your dog, or is it opportunistic? How do you see the time for your training with your dog?
So yeah, it's very interesting because our disc dog seasons for training and playing are very different up and down the East Coast just of the United States. And in Florida, basically, if I don't get out there before 10:30 in the
Nine.
morning, it's way too hot. And then maybe if I'm lucky, 7:30, 8 o'clock, it might be cool enough to play them again. But that's the evening time is iffy because if it's been a real hot day, it doesn't even cool down, even like it cools down by like midnight or something. So really the mornings are the best. And then of course you've got to worry about the dew on the ground too. So it can't be like too early, like 8:30, 9 o'clock is probably the best time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to actually ask you is, to me, I would use the dew as an indicator of being okay to do your dog stuff, because at that point, the temperature humidity should be at its lowest point, but you're considering with your dog jumping, that being a danger, correct?
Right. Yeah, just depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm doing things if I'm practicing freestyle tricks and stuff, I'd rather it not, I'd rather the dew
Mhm.
be burnt off a little bit.
Sure. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm just not as familiar with your sport as others, and it's really fascinating to see. I always welcomed the do because it meant usually everything was going to be okay. But with yours, do you find a lot of injuries occur in your sport, or certain types?
I mean, honestly, and Dre, you can chime in on this too, but honestly, our dogs have they usually when they get hurt, it's something stupid. It's like getting into the van or like because they were excited or whatever and they got into the van and they stepped on something and they tweaked something in their paw or something. Like I have not had, knock on wood, I have not had any like
No.
major injuries from playing disc sports over the last 20 something years. I mean, Kat, am I wrong? Can you think of something?
I've had two dislocated toes.
True. Okay. All right. We had two
Oh,
dislocated toes.
Yeah.
But and those were like freak kind of things. One dog was chasing down a low, the disc was very low to the ground and couldn't quite get to it, and then tried to stop really quick. And I think the paws were out like this and caught the pinky toe on like a tuft of grass and just, bent it. But in terms of vaulting and the jumping and the twisting and all of that, um, I do try to be very careful. And there's, Dre and I have had many podcasts on these topics, but like, if you're intentional about your throwing, and you understand where the disc needs to be in order for your dog to leap safely up in the air and off your body to get to it. Typically, if a dog gets injured, I would say, the big portion of time that a dog gets injured, it's because we didn't put the disc where it needed to be, maybe in the wind or something like that, and the dog reacted while in the air and then landed poorly and got hurt. Dre, I'll let you kind of say. I know you've had a couple injuries, haven't you, Dre?
Yeah, Moxie was the same thing with the toe. She was on my back on a back stall, and she went from a back stall to the ground. She wasn't running. She just went from up to down and ended up pulling that pinky toe. And she was out for like 18 weeks with that. And I've had some overuse injuries, some bicep strains and inflammation just from a lot
Well,
of
and you
shows,
did,
a
you
lot of wear
did.
and
I was just
tear.
gonna say you did a lot of work with your dogs with the
Yeah.
shows.
So I had two dogs that had bicep inflammation that retired them from freestyle, and one iliopsoas. And I think all three of those were related to overwork. As far as injury stuff, like that kind of stuff, you're right. It was like I don't play chuck it with my dogs because they break toes. So, it's like it's the little stuff that they get hurt on and not necessarily the big frisbee stuff. But that could be just because, we've been throwing for a while and we're pretty careful about our placement. What I see other people having a lot of injuries is that rising disc and the dog coming up and landing badly on their rear. Um, that kind of stuff. But that comes with experience, and we do the best we can in the environment that we're in. And it's nobody's intention to injure their dog, but my personal experiences and injury have been more around overuse, aside from Moxie's random coming off the shoulder thing that happened with her.
Yeah, and I think the do that we talked about earlier too. I think that's more. We need to use more caution when you probably saw Dr. Tim at the event that we had some crossover games that use agility equipment. And of course, if
Mhm.
we're using a tunnel or something like that, we want to make sure that there's no moisture in that tunnel, as the dogs are going through at high speed. So that would be a situation where we would wait for that dew to burn off so that we don't end
Mhm.
up with, dogs slipping inside the tunnel or something like that.
Yeah.
Sure. I do a fair amount of orthopedic work, surgical and otherwise, and like you were saying, Dre, the repetitive injuries of certain dogs, flyball dogs and whatever, usually revolve around the same type of injuries with wrists. Iliopsoas are ones that come up on occasion with these sporting dogs like yours, which we rarely see in sled dogs. But I've never seen that I can recall a cruciate tear in a border collie. Okay, it's the way their knees are made. Okay, they've been selected, okay, over many years, so that's not part of it. Sled dogs are the same thing. I think I've seen 4 or 5 cruciate tears in 38 years, you know. So those dogs are just selected for that spot versus a Labrador who's not, okay, meant for some of these things. So
Yeah.
doesn't mean they can't do it, but I wouldn't expect the lab to do things like what I saw Megan was saying the dogs that were just flying through the air like 20 feet, they looked like some sort of whippet deerhound cross. I don't know what they were, but man, they were so athletic. It was really fun just to watch those, and all the dogs for that matter. But those guys, they just powered. I don't know where they came from,
I think those were the
but I bet
Malinois
you they
who've been
never
making
injure their knee, but they will break a toe or dislocate a toe. That's what they tend to do.
yeah. Um, Jack, you had a
So,
question about Chillin's food, I think.
well, let's I know Dre, I know you've got to run and I don't want to keep Dr. Tim too long. Perhaps maybe we can even have him back at some time to maybe even get questions from our listeners and come
Good
back
idea.
again at another time with some questions. He could have those questions ahead of time. But why don't we jump to the end so that we can I don't want to miss out on the time warp challenge with Dr. Tim.
Do you want to jump right to that?
Yeah. So
All
Dr.
right, let me
Tim, we do
Um,
at the end of our episodes here, we have a game called Time Warp. I don't know if you happen to actually I think you
They were
guys were gone
gone.
with
They
that
were
one
gone on
because
Time Warp Day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So our game called Time Warp is a very fast game and dogs have to catch between 0 and 10 yards, 10 and 20, and then in the middle of the field and get those 3 catches back across the line as fast as possible. Um, and our winning team this year did it in 9 seconds, which was crazy. But anyways, we took that title and we brought it to our podcast, and we have a time warp challenge on our podcast where we ask you 10 questions in 60 seconds. If you've ever seen like the Colbert Report, he does something similar. I think he stole it from us, even though he was doing it before us. But
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
we've got 10 questions for you. Don't think too much about them. Just answer whatever comes into your head quickly. And Dre, what's the record for this? Like somebody did it with 11 seconds remaining or
I think it was
something?
9 seconds left, I think was the record, 9 or 10 seconds left. But just
Okay.
try and finish. It's hard enough to get through the 10. So don't dilly-dally on any of your questions. We gotta keep it snappy if you're gonna
So do
make
the
it.
answers have to be correct?
No.
I mean, we'd like
Oh,
them to be. Dre,
They
come
have to
on.
make sense. They have to make sense.
have to make sense. Okay, yes and no does make sense. Yes, no.
Well, they have to be answers to the questions. They don't have to be your true soul.
Okay, got it. So these
Got it.
questions are going to come from anywhere in the universe, huh?
Oh my Lord. This is going to be off the chain. All right, we can redo the time warp challenge, you know. If you don't answer
No,
any
no,
of the
no,
questions,
no.
we'll redo it. All
No,
right, are
let's
you
do it.
ready?
Let's do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jack, I don't even hold on. Okay, I have the timer and the questions. I'm on the same device. This is going to be fun. All right, you
You
go
want
first,
me to
Jack,
do,
and then I'll start
you
the
want me to
timer.
do
I'm
the
good.
timer or
No, I got it. I can just start it.
Is
Okay,
okay.
this how
you
Colbert
ready?
does it? Okay.
Yes, yes, very, very
Exactly.
professional.
It's exactly how he does it. Are you ready?
Actually, I
All right,
don't
here
think
we
he
go.
times it at all.
They just go. They just go with an
Yeah,
unlimited amount of time.
yeah.
Ours is better. All right, it's time for the time warp challenge. Here we go. Ready, set, go.
All right, Dr. Tim, if you could only see the world in one color, what would you want that color to be?
Blue,
Are you a morning or evening person?
morning.
Who is your favorite cartoon character?
Ziggy,
Is soup a meal?
no.
What is your favorite activity to do with your dog?
Sleep,
What's your favorite thing about UpDiff? 30 seconds.
uh, camaraderie.
Is mayonnaise on French fries okay?
Yes.
Name 3 national parks.
Glacier, Smoky Mountains, and Grand Canyon.
Do aliens exist?
Yes.
Would you rather drive or be a passenger in a car?
Passenger, I can sleep.
4 seconds
Very
on the
good,
clock.
Dr.
We
Tim. You
did
nailed it. That's a
it.
10.
Time warp complete.
Completed our time warp challenge. And I feel like those were legit answers.
All right.
Mhm.
You did
Thanks.
good.
Thank you. Thank you. This is fun. Yeah, happy to come back. We should have
we should have an
after vet.
achievement.
That is something. Is there an award? Do I get some sort of a
Yeah,
sticker?
we need to Jack. We need an achievement for the time warp challenge now. We
I'm
need to,
sure we could come up with something. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure we could do that.
we need a
You
special
know it's
sticker.
just going to be a sticker, Dr. Tim.
Give me a sticker.
Oh, I know. I know. You guys are sticker heavy. I love it. Everybody has stickers on their own dogs. I think it's terrific.
Yeah. Now, if you come back next year, you'll just have to get some stickers made of your dogs, and then you can be in the sticker trading party.
Oh, absolutely. We'll do that. When is your next event?
The next UpDiff is next April, 7th through
Next
11th.
April?
Yeah, but we
Okay.
do have we have the invitational coming up. If you wanted to come out for the invitational, we don't know exactly when that's going to be or
Do
exactly
we know the
where.
date yet for the invitational?
No, hopefully
No,
early
it's
November.
not been.
Yeah,
It's not been
probably
announced.
it's probably early November, late October, early November. We're still nailing down a location for it, but we'll let you
Well,
know.
it's great. People have things to do. You know, most weekends they can travel around, be around people they like and do like things. It's really a good way to do it with your dogs, man. You guys got the answer. You guys should be really proud of yourself for what you've done. Honestly.
Well, thank you. We are, and we're, I mean, proud of ourselves, but also like just, I mean, honestly, like humbled that many people like come and play our games and do our stuff, and it's just sometimes I can't believe it. I just turn to Dre or Kat or whoever's there, and I'm like, seriously, we built this out of our backyard. I mean,
Yep.
that it's really cool. It's really cool to see so many people having fun with their dogs.
Well, good. That's great. So, well,
And we appreciate
congratulations. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All
Yeah, we
right.
appreciate having you on, and we also appreciate your sponsorship and showing up to UpDiff. I think that made a big difference for everyone to get to
Absolutely.
connect with you personally, and it gave you a great chance to get some treats and goodies and stuff in everybody's hands too. So we're very grateful that you were able to make it out for UpDiff. So thank you
Yeah,
for coming.
we'll be back next year.
All right.
Cool.
Well, those of you guys listening in, we hope, just like Dr. Tim said, we hope that you find an event close by on the weekend that you can enjoy with your dog. In the meantime, Dre, should they be doing?
Be kind to each other.
And be kind to your animals. We will see you next time on The Sweet Spot.
Ready, set, go! Yo, you heard the buzz, heard the word on the street. Up dog challenge, it can't be beat. It ain't just fetch, it's a very special game for the dogs and the people. We all shout its name, whether it's a roller or in the air. My canine companion doesn't really care. We're in the up dog zone now. Got that laser focus, making every throw an epic high flying bonus. What's up, dog? We're on the field, sun in the sky, with my best friend soaring, teaching that just to fly. It's the up dog jingle, so come get in the mix for the ultimate teamwork and all the best tricks. From throw and go to freestyle, we're bringing the heat. We're fun, helpful, and a friendly team that can't be beat. So if you love your pup and you love to see the disc really spin, come on down to Up Dog, where the good times begin.
Yeah, where the good times begin.